actually wanted to get back into the realm of things here. Sorry that I've been away from my computer here, just doing different things and taking care of business, maintaining house and home. You know how that is. But anyway, to go ahead and just kick off this lesson here, we're going to be talking about an issue here that is very important in today's walk with Christ, and that's the concept of discipline. One of the main things that we have to understand is that a lot of people really have a very misunderstanding of what discipline is all about, what it entails, how it's used, when it's used, that sort of thing. Even though when we think of the word discipline in and of itself, usually, we think of, whips and chains and yelling and everything like that that goes against, that we pretty much perceive in our mind to understand the concept of what discipline is. But when you're talking about actually within the fellowship or the umbrella of faith and the Lord Jesus Christ and living for the one above, discipline is one of the main aspects and actually a crucial concept that a lot of us that we have to learn and actually be able and be prepared to accept when you're talking about living for God, being saved, sanctified, filled with the Holy Ghost and everything else that goes with that. But again, we have to understand and really appreciate what discipline is and how it can actually be used to work for us. And we have to really understand is that discipline in and of itself is not a bad thing. If anything, it's actually a necessary thing in order for us to achieve and get to where we want in life, both in church and out of church. I mean, we have to understand is that in order for you to get to where you need to be in life, or where you would want to be in life, you're going to actually have to be able to know that it's going to take a lot of discipline to get you there. But before we actually move on with the concept, again, of how this thing works called discipline, we have to understand that, it's like it's a never-ending battle with the Lord God trying to get us to do the right thing, trying to live, saved, sanctified, and just live according to the Bible. And it's because of that great struggle that sometimes we make God work overtime in our dealings with us, because it's always about self-will as opposed to what God says we are supposed to do in His Word. But again, in order to continue on with this lesson, I'm going to go ahead and give you a breakdown first of all of what discipline is. What I'm going to do first of all is I'm going to give you the definition of what the dictionary says discipline is, and then I'm going to turn around and give you my definition of what I think discipline is and how it actually relates to us as far as the Bible's concerned. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and do that right now. Now that we actually have the basic two definitions out of the way of what discipline is as far as what the dictionary says, and what I'm actually telling you, or actually trying to get you to understand what discipline is from a spiritual concept, we have to actually be able to talk about each discipline in different areas in our life and in different settings. What I'm going to do is actually bring back the concept of of what my life story for the most part. I'm not going to go and tell a whole biography, but what I'm going to actually do is let you know how discipline actually was needed when I was in the military. See, one of the main things, again, is that in order for us to actually have a strong military force, to protect the America, we actually have to be trained in order to know how to respond to different things and how to, go out and fight and this, that, and the other. And see, one thing about it, again, is that if you want to actually get in an organization that will actually teach you how to be disciplined, the military is actually one way to go. And a lot of people don't like the military because of that. That's why I think, in my opinion, you have a lot of people that are growing up, or not a lot of people, but a lot of young folks that are growing up who really do not know a lot about life. And the sad part about it is that they don't even want to know how to live a proper life, because, again, they weren't disciplined. Even though they grew up in a home where they might had mommy and daddy, teach them the basic rules of life on how to treat other folks, how to deal with situations, and how to, treat people with respect. A lot of times, even though they came from good homes, they would still end up with, growing up, just learning just to be ornery, disrespectful, and not really having a care in the world, thinking that everything goes and marches by the speed of their drums and what they say. In other words, they feel that the sun needs to rise and the moon needs to set on their command. And see, we have to understand is that, again, when you're talking about this type of behavior, discipline is actually a much needed entity in these types of situations, because, again, it takes away of what you think things should be, and it actually brings into reality of what is and what will be. And see, I think, in my opinion, the military actually afforded me a great opportunity to actually learn that concept, even though learning that concept was actually a struggle within itself. Because again, when you're going into the military, it's like they're taking away from you of what you think or what you once were, and actually they're developing and forming you into a entity that will actually be able to maintain and actually be able to survive a different life structure. And again, that's pretty much what discipline is all about, at least in this particular area in life, the military. Again, I'll get into how that relates to in the biblical terms in a minute, but I'm going to stick with the military for now. So again, going along that same concept, and getting discipline. In the military, when I was in there, the Marine Corps, they constantly, everything that we actually learned, taught, and did, it all revolves around that concept of discipline. Because again, in order for you to function in that type of environment, you're going to need to know what you need to do. You're going to need to know how to react. You're going to need to know how to do all of these type of things at a moment's notice. And see, in order for you to learn that, it has to be instilled in you. And the methods that they use to actually instill discipline in us, it seemed like it would be a bit harsh to some. But again, when I was going in and thinking about this thing, I was like, okay, for reflecting back on my training in the military, I'm like, the drill instructor getting in front of your face, yelling and everything like that, and you're thinking like, why in the world would I actually have to sit there and watch and actually just have, I'm like being surrounded by all of these drill instructors, and they're yelling at me, trying to get me to, tie my shoes fast, or trying to make my bed or my rack fast, put on my clothes fast, all this, that, and the other. And I'm thinking that, what in the world does this have to do with me actually being in the military? And again, when we first entered into the military, I'm pretty sure that we all thought that way. Why is this simple thing, and it's like, why do we have to learn to do it this fast, this, that, and the other? How is this going to relate to national security? And again, that's fine. But see, one thing about it is that, again, as training progressed on, and of course the yelling continued, and this, that, and the other, and they would not let off, they would stay on your backs the entire time throughout the whole 13 weeks that I was there in Parris Island. The yelling continued. But the thing about it that, again, once I learned and really began to see how their yelling actually instilled, I guess, a lot of knowledge and know-how on how the military do things as opposed to what I was used to doing, they began to really ease up a little bit. Even though the yelling did not stop, they would still get in your face and keep that foot in your behind, or put your feet to the fire a little bit. They would not do it as much, and they would not be as harsh about it. Because again, they are transforming you into one person who you once were, into in my case, the Marine that I wanted to become. And again, discipline comes, and it's a long road to discipline. I mean, in other words, I guess realistically thinking, I did not think that it would take that much of yelling, and anger and all this other type of stuff. And see, one thing that I really had to understand is that when I was at the MEP station, the person who was actually processing me, and for those of you who do not know what MEPS is, that's the Military Entrance Processing Station. That's where you go to, do your oath and everything, do your last minute paperwork and everything before you ship out to basic training. But one of my representatives from the Marine Corps was there, and they were processing me in and were asking me all these different questions. And one of the main things that he actually told me, and that kind of sticks with me to this day, and I'll never forget it, is that he said, don't take it personally. Whatever you do, don't take it personally. They're only there, meaning the drill instructors, to do a job. Don't take it personally. Yeah, there are going to be a lot of times when you're going to think that you don't know why you went through this, why you're getting yourself into this, and you're going to at sometimes think that you're going to want to run away. But he said if you stick there and hang through with it, it'll be worth it in the end. And it's going to take, and again, that was a lot, and I was actually thinking about that the whole time that I was on the bus leaving from Jacksonville to go to Parris Island, South Carolina. I just didn't know what he was meaning by that. But by and by, as I got through training and as I was actually going through training, I began to understand, what he was meaning. Yes, they will get in your face and yell and everything, but and the whole time they're yelling in my face, I'm sitting up there thinking, don't take it personally. These people do not have any type of personal connection with me. I'm only here with these people for only, for 3 months. And I had to keep that in my head. But even though I knew that this was nothing but a quote-unquote game and not to take it personally, they had a job to do, just like the representative told me at the MEP station. And what their job to do was to instill discipline. And see, that's what they were trying to do, break us down from the civilian that I once was and bring me up into the Marine Corps standards and what it would be to be an entry-level Marine. And again, as training began to wind down and everything, I had to say that I actually was a totally two different people. From the time that I first came through training all the way to graduation day, I was a totally different person. I looked different also because of, all of that running and stuff. They kept you in shape. I can say that. But all of the yelling and all of this type of stuff that went on in there, it was worth it because it taught me something that I needed, that I thought I knew, but turn around and come to find out I didn't know. And that's what, of course, being learning discipline is all about. Breaking down and being willing to be changed into something better. And see, that's the whole thing. Again, the concept with in this particular situation in my life with the military, they were transforming me into something better. Not nothing against those that were working at Walmart and everything else, because again, a job is a job, especially in this economy. But again, they were breaking me down into from what I thought I was into something that's bigger and better, so I can actually be of service to the United States of America in the form of being a Marine. Again, going along with this concept of discipline, also they taught us in military training the importance of military appearance. And see, one of the main things also with that again is that we had to again stay in shape. We had to constantly do a lot of PT, which is physical training, and we also had a lot, to do, weigh-ins and everything else. And pretty much they were very strict, and I'm pretty sure they're still strict now in how they want you to appear in uniform. Because again, appearance is everything. You cannot go out there and say that you represent a strict force, an elite force, in this case the Marines, looking all sloppy and unkept. So to correct that, they actually had a program called the Military Appearance Program, where you would actually, if you were actually caught, I guess, not looking your best, not being able to look good in uniform, not just, just looking all slouchy, I would say. They would put you on this program and they would give you a chance to improve, and again, a lot of that improvement also depended upon you. See, one thing about it that you had to understand is that you had a lot of people that actually lost promotions because, again, they weren't looking good in uniform. So, again, what they did, and I love this approach, is that they put the pressure not necessarily on, the administrative offices themselves. They put the pressure on the individual. How bad do you want this promotion? Okay, we've given you all of the instructions on what you need to do in order for you to look good and actually stay, to look right in uniform. Now, mind you, while I'm talking about this is not actually in basic training, because in basic training everything is structured. Pretty much you have to do what they tell you to do. I'm talking about once you leave basic training and you're at your first duty station, where you're not really supervised as much. So in that concept, when you're at your training, at your first duty station, everything is all off you now. Even though you're still a Marine, you're still a person in the United States, of America, uniform code, all this other type of stuff. You're in the in the military. Now you are responsible for your own upkeep. So how far you go up or how far you stay where you are is totally dependent upon you. So they would take the burden off the unit and put it on the individual. Okay, the Marine Corps standards for, military grooming standards and all this type of stuff in appearance and uniform. Now, I'm going to take that off of you. You're going to have to do what you need to do. Of course, you're not going to do anything extreme like starve yourself and stuff like that, because you have to have proper nutrition. We're going to go ahead and let you do what you got to do, so you can actually be able to look, trim down, so, you can look good in uniform. And of course, that would take a lot of thinking and doing on the individual Marine's part, which is where the discipline concept comes in. Because if you want something bad enough, in this case in the military promotion, you're going to go ahead and watch what you eat, you're going to exercise, you're going to do all of these type of things, to ensure that the next time when the promotion comes around, you'll be in that pack to get promoted. And see, again, that's what discipline in this particular setting was all about. Taking the responsibility for your own actions, being able to, say, okay, I worked hard for this, and I deserve this because I went through a lot and had to give up and sacrifice a lot in order to get this promotion. It's easier done for some people than it is with others. Me personally, I never had a problem or was never written up or anything for military appearance, because again, I was the type, thank God, that I always, I had a fast metabolism. I'm like naturally small as far as frame wise, so I never really had a problem with military appearance. If anything, I had the quote unquote the typical Marine build. I wasn't all big and muscle and all that type of stuff, but I had a nice trim toned figure. Again, moving along, also, in addition to, military appearance, we had to take classes on how to do different things. I remember when we first got there in my first weeks in boot camp, they were teaching us how to make a bed or a rack, how to assemble and disassemble a rifle, how to march, how to do all this type of stuff, how to obey commands, how to salute, how to do all of these different things. Again, because again, they were taking us from one aspect of our life and actually transforming us into a new aspect. Again, the discipline concept is all about, being transformed. It's like you're sitting there, you're going through these things and you're learning. Remember, discipline is all about learning. You cannot learn discipline unless it's taught to you. And see, again, this is what the military afforded me, the ability to learn a lot. And I really did learn a lot. And again, most of the thing that the military, the Marine Corps drilled into us is proper discipline. Because one thing about it is that Marine Corps has a reputation of, being the best. And see, you cannot be the best if you're not taught how to be the best. Nothing against those who served in other services like the Army, the Air Force, and the Coast Guard and the Navy and all of those other ones. But for the Marine Corps, they have a reputation of being the best, being the elite. Not everybody can claim that title. And trust me, with the things that I had to go through, I don't think most people would want to go through. But anyway, getting back on topic, again, we had classes to teach us on how to do these things. And I mean, the hardest part for me, again, is learning how and why. Why do I have to do this? Why do I have to do that? And again, once you begin to get deeper into it and then the discipline starts to come out, you'll begin to understand, okay, now I understand why I had to do this, that, and the other. Now, as with all things in life, again, if you choose to break those rules, then of course they had processes and administrative processes and procedures on what you would actually be involved in, which of course in this day and time is the Uniform Code of Military Justice. And see, that particular document or that particular entity of military life is something that you do not want to get involved in, because that can really cost you a lot as far as your military benefits, just different, add-ons as far as what you would normally get, to enhance your life once you get out of the service. Or even sometimes even when you're in the service. I mean, you got a lot of people that did behaviors that went against the Uniform Code of Military Justice, where they would actually receive what was called office hours, NJP, which is non-judicial punishment. I mean, like I said, I've witnessed a lot of it. I actually had to sit in on some things, and even, believe it or not, I was the subject of an NJP. But, in the end, the truth came out, and basically it was everything that was said turned out to be a lie, and pretty much God looked out for me in that situation. Thank you, God. Every day I thank Him for that. Because, again, without proper research in that particular situation, I could have lost all of my military benefits and really could have been suffering to this day and time as far as trying to find a job. But, again, I just thank God because, again, the research was done. And, of course, the facts were relayed out. And I had some people that was really that really knew the type of Marine that I was. And the fact, the stuff that I was being charged against was in no way in regards me personally as far as my character. But I thank God because, again, everything worked out fine. I learned a lesson. I sure did. Everything you go through in life, you learn a lesson, or I hope that you would get a lesson. But in this case, just know at this point that there are also rules and regulations that are in place if you choose to break the rules after you've been taught the rules. Okay? Now, transitioning back to this whole thing, now we're going to turn around and relate this to the Bible. Now, you got to understand something. The whole point of actually, having a fellowship with Christ, of course, is, the ultimate goal, which is to make it to heaven. But you don't have to wait to get to heaven in order to enjoy some of life's comforts as far as what God wants for you here on earth. I mean, one thing about it, God says, I desire that your soul prosper as you prosper. So again, sometimes prosperity, again, it can be spiritual, and most of the time it also can be physical. Either way, there is a rule of order in order to get these things. Again, and the way to get these things, of course, is through knowing how or what is required of you in order to get these things. And see, one thing about it is that this is where we're going into the concept again of the reading of the Bible. We have a lot of people still that want the best, but they still don't want to know what it's going to take or require for them to get it. And that's the major problem, at least in the Christian community. Again, in this day and time, we have a lot of people that want to take shortcuts, that wants to be blessed, that always want to be on the receiving end. But see, one thing about it, again, is that you have to understand, as much as you reign with Christ, you're going to have to suffer with Him also in some things. Again, and I thank God because a lot of stuff I've been through, God brought me out. And I know it had to be Him and nobody but Him, because The situations and circumstances that was put against me by other folks who really thought that they had me in, God had a way of escape. He always had a ram in a bush for me, and I thank him for it every day. But going back to this concept here again, is that you are not going to always, get to what you want in life without actually having to go through something to get it. And again, in order for you to go through and get something, you also have to be learned on how to treat it once you get it. And see, you have to understand that's where the discipline factor comes into play. Have you ever ran into people that are so used to actually receiving something and never having to work for it that once they get it, they just run through it just like it was as if they were entitled to it? And see, that's one of the main issues and problems again that we have with the attitude as far as getting things, whether it's physical or from spiritual, what have you. It's like we're so used to getting things is that we don't even put any appreciation into it. We just say, okay, thank you, and just leave it like that. And the next thing you know, you go to check up on it again, it's all used and abused, and there was no thought or care taken to maintain it. And see, that's one of the main things, again, that God is saying, that in order for you to get what God has for you to get, in most cases, you're going to have to be taught on how to deal with it and how to manage it. Because again, it's a sad thing when you're used to getting everything all the time and you are never having to work for it. See, when you work for something, when God gives you something, when you work for it, again, you appreciate it. And if anything, you're going to do everything you can to make sure that this thing lasts, because you don't even know if it's going to come around again, if the opportunity is going to come around again. And see, that's one of the beauty of actually being disciplined, is the fact that you know what it's going to take, and you know what it took for you to get this particular thing from God, and now that you've gotten it, you're going to do all that you can to make sure that it lasts until the next go round comes around where you get the next big blessing. Thank you. But like I say, it's one of those beautiful things again, and it's an important thing. Discipline in the Christian walk is necessary. That's why you have a lot of these things that you're seeing here that are being, broadcasted out for all of America to see, such as sex scandals going on in the church, stealing going on in the church, people in church on divorce court and all this other type of stuff, embarrassing things that brings embarrassment to the Word of God and Jesus Christ himself. I mean, God, I can imagine he's sitting up there thinking that what in the world are my people doing? Look at who they're becoming. They're supposed to be representations of me to the fellow man on earth, but it looks like here that they're blending in with the earth, with the people, with the sinners. Again, discipline is a very complex issue, and it's a very difficult and hard thing to maintain because it involves so many things. Just like in the military, it's no different in the spiritual concept of the matter. It requires so many things. You have to go through a lot, and by you going through, you're actually learning. That's the best part of this entire issue, is that you're learning. You're learning, okay, this is the mistake that I did this time. Next time I know not to make that mistake. Okay, I've learned from that. So because I know that if I fall into that again, this is what's going to happen. It's a beautiful thing. And see, one thing about it is that when you take the time and actually listen and really go and really look at what God is trying to tell you while you're going through, you're going to see the reason why there was a need for discipline in this particular instance. Again, and I can use another familiar concept, learning to know when to speak and when not to speak. We have to sometimes be trained. No, there is no sometimes. We have to learn to be trained on the art of when to say and when to be quiet. Because something, again, about it is that we have to teach God on how to be wise in everything that we do. Hold on for just a second. Okay, hold on. Sorry about that. Yes, but yes, we also have to ask God to actually help us to tame our tongue. Because it doesn't matter. Sometimes you can speak things that are truthful, and you know that it's truthful regarding a situation, a person, or whatever the case may be. But even though it's truthful, the timing factor can be all off, and you'll say something even though it's true, and it'll cause further problems. That's why that's one area where we all need help in, as far as the taming of the tongue. Now, we understand that the Bible tells us that the tongue no man can tame. That's something that is it's a little member, but it boasts great things. And it compares the tongue to, that little steering wheel that turns the ship. It's a little member, but it actually controls and actually rules lots of things and big things, that sort of thing. But again, you have to understand that's one area in all of our lives where we actually have to be able to know, okay, I need to be disciplined enough, even though I know that a person may be saying something and I know that they're lying. They know that they're lying, but yet still, in the end, you have to know, okay, I'm going to follow my rule, and if God tell me not to say anything, he has a plan. Because sometimes, people, they can talk so much that they end up hanging themselves by the neck. I mean, and God will sometimes fix it that way, because they know, and anybody who knows you, they'll know whether or not the person who's saying these malicious things against you is true or not. That's why, God says, vengeance is mine, said the Lord. So really, again, we really should not be trying to fight any battle, because God says that he's going to be the one that fights our battles. But we have to be disciplined enough to be still and watch him move. Again, one of the beautiful things about being, a human being, just being, able to just live and breathe, is the fact that we know the difference between right and wrong. These are things that, that we were, I guess, taught when we were younger. As we mature and grow older, we learn new things. We learn, a new way of handling an old situation, this type of thing. The same way, again, with the Bible, to the Christian walk. Again, a lot of things that we do, we act on impulse. Sometimes we do things that we know that we're not supposed to do, and again, nobody is perfect. We all slip up. But we have to understand, again, is that we're still going to be held accountable. Again, and again, and that's not anything that you can do anything about. I mean, I thank God that he actually is a God of forgiveness. He, even though we may know we do something wrong, he still sits there and gives us a chance. I thank God, because again, according to the old law in the Old Testament days, you weren't able to get away with almost nothing. I mean, you did something wrong, you were dealt with right then and there. I thank God that his son Jesus died on the cross so grace can come in and give us a chance. I mean, like I said, and that's just the way that it is. But again, we have to remain disciplined. We have to be able to, live by the good book, so to speak. I mean, again, and this goes for those who, really believe that there is a God. I mean, like I say, and see, one thing about it is that there's a situation that everybody will find themselves in. I mean, and everybody in the end is going to know that there is a God. Again, sometimes, you may go through situations in life where, nobody will be able to bring you out but God. And in my opinion, that's usually the most unique circumstances, because again, God has a way of making a believer out of the biggest sinner. But see, one thing about it, again, is that the person who's going through and being brought out, they have to know that, hey, nobody else could have done this for me except for God. But again, there's many different areas in life where we are, required to be disciplined. And it's just one of those things that we have to just know and be prepared to accept and deal with it as it comes along. Because again, in the end, just like in the military, you have the UCMJ that pretty much governs the way we're supposed to, conduct ourselves as far as, being members of the United States Armed Forces. You also have the Bible that actually executes and actually does the same function to govern on how we live our life here on earth as saints of Christ. Okay, I hope that you all got something out of this, and hope to speak to you soon. Have a good one.